We continue to follow breaking news. What has been 2 years, more than 2 years in the making. Israeli hostages released, reunited today with loved ones. As you can imagine, emotions very much running high on what is truly a historic day. I'd like to welcome in now journalist and anchor of the Israel Daily News podcast, Shanna Fuld. Shanna, it is so great to see you on this historic day. I know we spoke back in June when your apartment was destroyed. It was destroyed in a bomb. First of all, how are you feeling today?
Well, first of all, Nichole, it's great to be on your show, and thank you so much for remembering that detail. It was such a big moment in my life. I am feeling really a range of emotions. This is the day that we've all been waiting for, and I'm ecstatic that these hostages who've been underground, who've been in terrible conditions, are back reunited with their families. I tell you, every time I put a fork full of food in my mouth, I think about those hostages, as well as I think about Gazans in Gaza who have been without clean drinking water and having difficulty to get food. I think about these things every night that I go to sleep. And even that said, I myself had a really troubling time on June 16th during the 12 days of fighting with Iran. My apartment building was blown up by an Iranian ballistic missile. I was displaced for several months, and I'm happy to tell you that I've finally found a new home, and I moved in, and I actually am getting some comfort from family and friends at this point now that I've rehabilitated myself a little bit and have a place to stay.
Yeah, very glad to hear that, Shanna, because I do remember the video from months ago, and yes, your home was absolutely destroyed. So I'm glad that there is more positive news today. I do want to talk about this hostage release and all 20 living hostages now back home in Israel, where they belong. But let's talk about the deceased hostages. We know the Hostages Families Forum is calling already for the immediate suspension of all agreement implementation until every deceased individual is returned. At this point, only 4 of the deceased hostages will be returned today, not all of them. Do you think ultimately that happens?
Ultimately, I do think that they are going to be returned. I can't say with certainty that all are going to be returned. It's a large number. There's been a lot of destruction in Gaza. And I have to say that there have been a lot of twists and turns in this deal. And in my journalism and my reporting, I was often hesitant to release details about these deals, about what was going to happen, precisely for this reason. I think that it's very difficult with all of the scattering, with different terror groups within Gaza housing different different hostages, I should say. You had the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, you had Hamas, you had different fringe terror groups housing these individuals in private homes with families. And one of the things that a lot of released hostages from previous hostage releases talk about is the way that they were kept inside family homes. There were kids in the homes, there were parents in the homes, and there they were, a hostage being opened, the doors opening to get a little bit of food here and there. And so why do I mention this detail to you? To say that Gaza has been, first of all, ripped up and destroyed. These bodies could be anywhere throughout the Gaza Strip, and we know for a fact that they have that live hostages have been throughout the entire Gaza Strip. So I'm not confident that these terror groups know with full certainty where the bodies are. Why did they agree to this if they didn't know where those bodies were? I don't know. The information has been up and down. They've said they don't know where the bodies are. They say they do have the bodies. That came about right before the deal was signed. So I'm not sure that all of these bodies are going to get back, and rightfully so, from the families of hostages saying, we had a deal, we agreed, we signed it. Where is the other side of the deal? I'm sure that many of you who have missed a funeral of a family member, I've been thinking about this because I live in Israel and a lot of my family lives here in the United States. I've missed funerals of my family for dying of natural causes, and I still feel a sense of not having closure, of knowing that when you don't go to a funeral, sometimes it can feel a little open for you. Imagine how these families feel not having their kids back, their parents back, their brothers and sisters back, and having even a tinge of wonder. Is my family member alive in Gaza? Where are they? Were the kids taken and raised by a different family? It is confusing.
Absolutely. And as you said, so understandable why loved ones would want every bit of their family members back, even if it is remains. Obviously, ideally, that person would be alive. Sadly, we know that that is not the case for all of these hostage families. Shanna, President Trump addressed Israel's parliament earlier today, as you know, saying that we've done the impossible. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East. I'd like to listen to some of what he said.
It's an incredible triumph for Israel and the world to have all of these nations working together as partners in peace. And it's pretty unusual for you to see that, but it happened in this case. This was a very unusual point in time, a brilliant point in time. Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change.
So, Shanna, we know that the president is vowing Hamas will be demilitarized. He has made clear, that he believes momentum is on his side. How important is it to maintain that momentum?
It's very important to maintain the momentum. It's very important to maintain this optimism. And that's something that has actually been debated within the Jewish and Israeli community, because so many of the individuals who died on October 7th were people who are left-wing Israelis who really believed in a peaceful future. And many of them, and this is fact, were actually peace fighters. They were bringing young kids from the Gaza Strip into Israel to get hospital treatments at Israeli hospitals. They were actually getting in their own vehicles and driving their cars to do good for their Gazan neighbors. And so the debate within Israel and within the Jewish community is, where do you draw the line? How much do we believe? How much do we bring in optimism and positivity before it bites us? And a lot of the right wing want to take a more hardline stance on Palestinians and who are against the two-state solution say, we'd love for there to be peace. We would love to work together to create a situation where neighbors work side by side. But if we put down our arms, we will actually be killed and mutilated and maimed by them. So this is actually a very larger question about, where do we draw the line in our optimism? I personally believe that without the optimism, without the positivity, without the can-do attitude, there will be no peace. So I do think that this was a great way to achieve peace, and it didn't come necessarily through diplomacy. This is something that President Trump spoke about during his address. He said that the way that the Arab nations and Israel were able to move forward to sign the Abraham Accords, to get this peace underway, was to think out of the box and go through business. So he spoke many times about how signers of the Abraham Accords are actually having really big economic upturn from having signed on. Because, of course, as we know, when you have partners in the region that are working together, you can do more commerce, you can have better business. So I think this way around, as opposed to doing that diplomatic, traditional diplomacy that we've seen in the past, this has been working. Why? Because people want to make money. People want to see their civilians being fed, having jobs. And this is the way that Trump and Kushner were able to sort of create this deal, was through a vision of economic prosperity. So I do think that there is a great big possibility. However, we have reports out that within the last week, Hamas, the terror organization running Gaza, has been killing raising opposition groups. And this is a really touchy subject. There are groups within the Gaza Strip that have had good ideas. There are tribes. This is a very tribal society. There are tribes throughout the West Bank or Judea and Samaria, depending on how you call it, and tribes throughout the Gaza Strip. And there have been ideas about raising up families, tribal families, to work together and run what you might call little states working together. That was an idea. These opposition groups are being slaughtered in the streets. And why in the streets? To make a point. All opposition to Hamas has been silenced. So the question really does arise, who is going to replace Hamas? And I think that that's something that's going to be worked on in the future weeks. I do think that it's possible, but I think that it's going to take really big guns and really big security to keep Hamas and to keep terror groups back from trying to regain control in the area. We don't know what it's going to look like, but I think the only way to achieve something like this is through positivity, because negativity just doesn't make deals.
Absolutely. Israeli journalist Shanna Fuld, live for us there in Israel. Shanna, thank you so much. And again, so happy that you are rebuilding after your apartment was destroyed back in June. Shanna, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
We are standing by. As you can see there, we're taking a live look. This is in Egypt, where world leaders are meeting. Just signed a historic peace deal there. We are waiting and expecting remarks from President Trump. We will bring those live after the break.